I often felt invisible in my marriage. My husband, Paul, was consumed by his work at the law firm, often coming home late and barely acknowledging my presence. The evenings stretched on like an endless loop of silence, punctuated only by the sound of his typing on the laptop or the hum of the television playing in the background. I would sit at the dining table, picking at my dinner, wondering when we had drifted apart so completely. It was as if I had become just another piece of furniture in our home, functional but overlooked. The family gathering that weekend felt like a welcome distraction. Paul had insisted on inviting his son, Alex, over for dinner. I prepared a simple meal of grilled chicken and roasted vegetables, hoping to create some semblance of normalcy. As we sat around the table, I noticed how Alex's presence brought a spark of life into the room. He was passionate about photography, always talking about his latest projects and sharing stories about his adventures with friends. His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of interest, a reminder that there was still vibrancy in life outside my marriage. After dinner, we moved to the living room where Alex set up his camera to show us some recent photos he had taken at a local festival. The images were filled with color and energy. They captured moments that seemed to leap off the screen. I found myself leaning closer, drawn not just to the photos but to Alex's excitement as he explained each shot. When our eyes met briefly, something shifted between us, an unexpected spark that sent a shiver down my spine. I quickly looked away, reminding myself of boundaries I should not cross. As Paul retreated back into work mode after dinner, I felt an unshakable sense of loneliness creeping in again. It became clear that this neglect ran deeper than just busy schedules. It was an emotional chasm that seemed insurmountable. The laughter and warmth shared with Alex lingered in my mind long after he left that night. For the first time in years, I felt seen and appreciated, not just as Paul's wife but as someone with thoughts and feelings worth acknowledging. The next morning brought a familiar routine. Coffee brewing in our old drip machine and toast popping up from the toaster while Paul read through emails on his phone. I watched him from across the kitchen island as he scrolled through messages with furrowed brows. It was as if he were miles away from me even while sitting right there. A part of me wanted to reach out, to break through this wall, but fear held me back. Later that week, Alex texted me about an upcoming photo shoot he wanted to do for his portfolio. He asked if I would be willing to model for him, a simple request that sent my heart racing with both excitement and guilt. My immediate thought was to decline. After all, what would Paul think? Yet something inside urged me to accept. Perhaps it would be a chance to step outside my mundane existence and embrace something new. When I arrived at the photography studio on Saturday afternoon, Alex greeted me with a warm smile that made me forget my earlier doubts. The studio was filled with soft lighting and various props scattered around, a creative haven where imagination thrived. As he began setting up shots, I felt an exhilarating sense of freedom wash over me. Here was a space where I could shed my roles as wife and mother for just a moment. As we worked together, experimenting with angles and poses, I found myself laughing more than I had in years. Each click of the camera captured not just images but emotions long buried beneath layers of routine and obligation. There were moments when our eyes met across the lens. Those brief connections sent jolts through me like electric currents igniting something dormant within. Yet guilt shadowed these fleeting joys like dark clouds threatening rain. Each laugh echoed against my conscience, reminding me of my commitments at home, of Paul waiting for me without any idea what was unfolding here. By the end of our session, we were both exhilarated yet exhausted from our creative endeavor. As we reviewed some shots together on his laptop screen, images bursting with life, I noticed how close we had become physically during this time. Our shoulders brushed against each other as we leaned in closer to examine details. "Wow," he said softly after pulling up one particularly striking image where light danced across my face, beautifully captured against vibrant colors behind me. "Yeah," I replied quietly, feeling warmth spread through me. not just from praise but also from being seen so clearly for who I really was beneath all those layers society expected women like me to wear daily. But then reality crashed back into focus when I remembered Paul waiting at home unaware that today had changed everything for me, even if only temporarily, and suddenly it felt too risky standing here teetering on this edge between two worlds, one familiar yet suffocatingly dull, another exciting yet fraught with danger. I gathered my things quickly, feeling adrenaline pumping through every vein, urging escape before consequences caught up. But before leaving, Alex called out gently, "Let's do this again soon." His hopeful gaze held mine longer than necessary, igniting conflicting emotions within, longing mixed with fear swirling chaotically inside until finally settling into resolve. A decision made without words spoken aloud, yet loud enough echoing within every heartbeat, reminding me how much more there could be beyond these walls if only I'd dare step forward into unknown territory ahead. Stepping outside into bright sunlight felt surreal after being cocooned indoors. It illuminated everything around while casting shadows behind, reminding me how easily one could slip between lightness and darkness depending upon choices made going forward. And then there it was, the phone buzz vibrating insistently against my thigh, breaking through thoughts swirling inside, a message from Paul asking where exactly I'd been all afternoon. I hesitated, staring at the screen as my heart raced. Paul's message felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I had been lost in the world of photography, a realm where I could express myself freely, but now reality crashed back in. I quickly typed a response, assuring him I was at the park cafe with friends. It wasn't entirely untrue. I had been with Matteo earlier, but those moments felt like a secret life I was living outside my marriage. Matteo had suggested we meet again for another photo shoot. I felt an electric thrill at the thought. It was as if each click of the camera pulled me deeper into something I both craved and feared. Yet guilt gnawed at me. What was happening between us? The line between admiration and something more blurred every time we met. When we arrived at the studio, the atmosphere was charged with creativity. The sunlight streamed through large windows, casting patterns on the floor as Matteo adjusted his camera settings. "Let's capture something real today," he said, his voice steady yet inviting. My heart fluttered at his words. They felt like an invitation to explore uncharted territory. As we began shooting, it became easier to forget my worries. With each snap of the shutter, I revealed layers of myself that had long been hidden away. We laughed and shared stories about our lives, his dreams as a photographer and my struggles with identity beyond being a wife and mother. In those moments, it felt like we were bound by an understanding that transcended mere words. Then it happened, an unexpected moment when our laughter faded into silence. Our eyes locked, and without thinking, we kissed. The world around us vanished. It was just us in that moment of vulnerability and connection. A rush of exhilaration mixed with fear coursed through me as reality crashed back in. The weight of what we had just done settled heavily on my shoulders. "Claire," he whispered softly, breaking the spell that enveloped us. His gaze held both excitement and uncertainty. "What does this mean for us?" I pulled away slightly, breathless yet exhilarated by what had transpired. "I don't know," I admitted honestly, feeling both liberated and terrified by our actions. After that day in the studio, I found myself looking forward to our next meeting with an intensity that startled me. Each time Paul asked about my whereabouts or commented on my late nights out, guilt twisted within me like a knife. He noticed changes in me, my newfound passion for photography, but he didn't suspect how deep those changes ran. As days turned into weeks, our secret encounters became more frequent under the pretense of art projects and photo shoots. Each session deepened our bond while simultaneously complicating my emotions further than I could have imagined. One evening after another shoot at his studio, Matteo suggested we go for coffee nearby at a local diner known for its homemade pies, the Blue Plate Special. The diner buzzed with life, families gathered over steaming plates while laughter filled the air like music. "Do you think your husband suspects anything?" Mateo asked cautiously as we sat across from each other in a booth tucked away from prying eyes. I don't know, I replied honestly while stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. He's been busy with work, but sometimes I feel he knows something is off. Mateo leaned closer across the table, his expression serious yet tender. We need to be careful. His words hung heavy between us, a reminder that every choice carried consequences. Later that night when I returned home to find Paul waiting up for me in dim light spilling from the living room window, anxiety churned within me again like a storm brewing on the horizon. Where have you been? He asked quietly but firmly. Just out with some friends, I replied too casually for comfort. Paul studied me closely before nodding slowly but not fully convinced as he turned back toward his laptop screen flickering in front of him. Lost once more in work while I stood there feeling invisible again amidst swirling thoughts of Mateo's warmth against mine earlier that day. Days rolled on as summer melted into fall, colors shifted outside reflecting changes within myself too. Each photo taken became more than just an image captured but rather pieces of my identity stitched together through artful expression alongside Mateo's encouragement fueling creativity previously stifled by routine mundanity. Yet shadows loomed ever closer around corners where secrets lingered waiting patiently to surface unexpectedly. I found myself standing in the kitchen, the aroma of coffee swirling around me like a comforting blanket. My husband, John, sat at the table, engrossed in his laptop. I could feel the weight of his indifference pressing down on me. You've been busy lately, he remarked without looking up, his voice flat. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Just exploring some new photography projects. The words felt hollow as they left my lips. I wanted to tell him how invigorating it was to express myself creatively with Mateo, but that wasn't something I could share. Photography again? You know you should spend more time with us, he said, finally glancing my way. There was an edge to his tone that made my stomach churn. I didn't want to feel guilty for seeking fulfillment outside our marriage, yet here I was, caught between two worlds. That afternoon, I met Mateo at a local park cafe where the chatter of families filled the air and laughter danced around us like sunlight filtering through leaves. He set up his camera on a nearby bench while I adjusted my scarf nervously. You seem distant today, he said softly, capturing me through his lens with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I'm just thinking about everything, I replied as our eyes locked for a moment longer than necessary. In those fleeting seconds, our connection deepened again. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. We spent hours discussing art and life, sharing stories that felt intimate and raw under the warm glow of afternoon light. As we talked about inspiration and vulnerability, the tension between us thickened until it became almost palpable. When our hands brushed together while reaching for the same cup of coffee, it felt electric. Let's capture something real today, Mateo suggested suddenly. His eyes sparkled with mischief as he pulled me into a secluded area of the park where sunlight filtered through branches like liquid gold. Just be yourself. I nodded hesitantly as he began snapping photos. Each click resonated within me like a heartbeat echoing in a quiet room. With every shot taken, I found myself shedding layers of doubt and shame. This was more than just photography, it was liberation. Then came the moment when our lips met unexpectedly. It was soft yet charged with unspoken emotions we had both been holding back. We kissed briefly before pulling apart abruptly as if jolted by an unseen force. I shouldn't have done that, I whispered breathlessly, panic creeping in alongside exhilaration. Why not? Mateo replied earnestly, searching my eyes for answers that eluded us both. Before I could respond, a familiar voice echoed through my mind. John's warnings about boundaries and family dynamics loomed large over me once more. Later that evening at home, John confronted me again about my absences. You're different lately, he stated bluntly while setting down his laptop with a frown etched across his face. What's going on? Nothing's going on, I insisted too quickly, guilt clawed at my insides as I thought about Matteo and our moments together. He raised an eyebrow skeptically but didn't press further. A silence fell between us like an unbridgeable gap filled only by unspoken truths. The next day brought another photo session with Matteo at his studio, a place infused with creativity where we often lost ourselves in art and conversation alike. As we worked together amidst scattered canvases and photographs lining walls like memories waiting to be explored further still, I felt alive for perhaps the first time in years. Yet amid this newfound freedom came nagging doubts. Shame lingered in the corners of my mind like shadows refusing to fade away completely despite all efforts made otherwise. "Are you okay?" Matteo asked softly during one break from shooting when he noticed my distracted gaze drifting elsewhere, toward thoughts too heavy to articulate aloud. "I'm fine," I lied again half-heartedly but couldn't shake off feelings weighing heavily upon me still. My heart conflicted between loyalty towards John versus desire ignited by Matteo's presence alone. As we wrapped up that day's session together though, something shifted within me once more. Perhaps it was realization dawning upon consciousness. This wasn't merely about photography anymore, it had evolved into something deeper altogether. Days turned into weeks filled with stolen moments spent alongside Matteo where laughter mingled freely amidst creativity flowing effortlessly through us both. But guilt continued gnawing away at edges surrounding those cherished experiences shared too intimately now between two souls drawn together against all odds present within family dynamics themselves. Then came that fateful afternoon when everything changed, the day John discovered one of my personal items left behind at Matteo's studio. An old bracelet engraved with initials long forgotten yet now resurfacing memories buried deep beneath layers built over years gone by. When confronted later that evening after returning home exhausted from work, I braced myself for impact knowing full well consequences awaited just beyond threshold crossed unwittingly before. John's eyes narrowed as I entered the living room, the bracelet clutched tightly in his hand. I could feel the tension thickening the air around us, a tangible reminder of the secrets I had tried to bury. "What is this doing here, Claire?" he asked, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of anger. I hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't betray my guilt. "It must have fallen out of my bag," I replied, attempting to sound casual. But deep down, I knew that wasn't enough to explain its presence in Matteo's studio. "You've been spending a lot of time with him lately," John continued, his tone shifting from curiosity to accusation. "What's really going on?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. I felt my heart race as I recalled our last photo session, the way Matteo's camera captured not just images but emotions I hadn't felt in years. We had shared laughter and fleeting touches that ignited something deep within me. "It's just photography," I insisted, but even as I said it, doubt crept into my mind. Later that week, despite the unease between us, I found myself drawn back to Matteo's studio. The walls were adorned with photographs that told stories I wanted to be part of. When he greeted me with that warm smile, it felt like stepping into sunlight after a long winter. "Ready for another session?" Matteo asked as he set up his equipment. There was an unspoken understanding between us now, we were both aware of the line we were towing. "I've been thinking about what we can capture today," he added, his eyes sparkling with creativity. As we began shooting, our connection deepened through every click of the shutter. Each frame held a piece of me, my insecurities laid bare in front of him, and it made me feel alive again. We shared intimate moments during breaks, laughter over coffee and discussions about art and life. Then came that moment when our lips met again. It was brief but electrifying, an acknowledgement of everything unsaid between us. Just as quickly, we pulled apart, both aware of the gravity of what we were doing but unable to resist its pull. "Let's take a break," I suggested, needing space to breathe and think clearly amidst the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. Matteo nodded but looked concerned. "Are you okay? You seem distant." "I'm fine," I lied, though inside I was anything but fine. The shame gnawed at me like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. As our session wrapped up for the day, I realized how much these moments meant to me, how they filled voids left unaddressed for far too long in my marriage. But then panic set in when I noticed something missing from my belongings, a small notebook filled with thoughts and sketches from our sessions together. "Did you see my notebook?" I asked Matteo frantically as we searched through his studio. He shook his head slowly. "No." "Did you leave it here?" The realization hit hard. If it fell into John's hands. "I'll find it," I said too quickly before leaving his studio with dread pooling in my stomach. Back home later that evening, John was waiting for me at the kitchen table, a place where many conversations had taken place over years spent together yet felt increasingly foreign now. "You're avoiding me," he stated flatly as if reading my mind. "I'm just busy with work," I replied defensively while avoiding eye contact. "Busy or distracted?" His question lingered like smoke from a fire long extinguished yet still stung my senses with its bitterness. "I don't know what you want me to say." My voice trembled slightly as frustration bubbled up beneath the surface. "Maybe start by being honest," he urged quietly. In that moment, silence enveloped us both. Walls built over years began to tremble under pressure from unacknowledged truths threatening to burst forth at any moment. Later that night, while lying awake in bed next to John, his breathing steady and calm, I couldn't shake off feelings swirling within me like leaves caught in autumn winds outside our window, fear mixed with longing for something more than routine existence offered daily. But then came another twist. Just before sleep finally claimed me, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message notification lighting up the darkened room. "Hey Claire. Found your notebook. Let's meet tomorrow?" It was from Matteo, a lifeline amidst chaos threatening everything familiar yet suffocating at once. How could this continue? Would meeting him again only deepen my entanglement? Or could it somehow provide clarity amidst confusion? As sleep finally took hold after what felt like hours wrestling thoughts away, I knew tomorrow would bring choices requiring courage beyond anything faced thus far. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I stared at the ceiling, contemplating Matteo's message. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to distance myself from the pull he had on my heart. Yet another part craved that connection, that understanding we had shared during our shoots. I made coffee in silence, the aroma filling the kitchen as I tried to ground myself in routine. My husband's absence was palpable. He had left early for work again, his brief kiss on my cheek feeling more like a goodbye than a farewell. I glanced at my phone, debating whether to reply to Matteo. "Okay," I finally typed back, "let's meet." When I arrived at the cafe later that day, the familiar sounds of clinking cups and laughter enveloped me. I spotted Matteo sitting at a corner table, his camera resting on the table beside him. He looked up and smiled, an expression that ignited something warm inside me. As I approached, he gestured for me to sit. "Your notebook was full of amazing ideas," he said, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I can't believe how much emotion you captured." His praise made my heart flutter. It felt good to be seen and appreciated after feeling invisible for so long. "I just needed an outlet," I replied softly, feeling vulnerable under his gaze. "Let's explore those emotions further," he suggested eagerly. "We could do a series focusing on your journey, your feelings about everything." The idea sent a thrill through me. Collaborating with him felt both exciting and dangerous. But as we talked about concepts and themes for our next project, doubt crept in again. Could I really dive deeper into this emotional connection? The line between professional and personal was blurring too easily. After our meeting ended, Matteo walked me to my car. He paused before saying goodbye and looked deeply into my eyes. "You have no idea how much you inspire me," he admitted quietly. My heart raced again as his words hung in the air between us. Thank you, I managed to say before getting into my car. As I drove home, thoughts swirled around in my mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. It would be so easy to let this relationship deepen further, yet each moment felt like stepping closer to an abyss. Later that evening at home, my husband returned unexpectedly early from work. He seemed distracted but still managed to ask about my day with genuine curiosity. "Did you have fun at the cafe?" he asked while pouring himself a drink. "It was fine," I replied carefully, avoiding his gaze as guilt washed over me. "I've been thinking we should do something together this weekend," he suggested casually, unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. "Sure," I said absently while trying not to picture how our plans would clash with Mateo's invitation for another shoot. As night fell and we settled into our usual routine of watching television together, an unease settled over me like a heavy blanket. My phone buzzed again, a message from Mateo asking about our next project ideas, and suddenly everything felt too close yet too far away all at once. I hesitated before responding. What if my husband saw? That thought alone sent chills down my spine as reality crashed back down upon me like waves against rocky cliffs. The following days blurred together as I juggled between family obligations and secret meetings with Mateo. Each time we met behind closed doors felt more intense than before. Every shared laugh or glance ignited something deeper within me that was hard to ignore. One afternoon during another photo session in a nearby park, lush trees providing shade from the sun, we found ourselves lost in conversation about dreams and aspirations when he suddenly leaned closer and whispered softly, "You're more than just someone's wife." His words struck a chord deep within me, a reminder of who I once was before settling into this life where invisibility reigned supreme. But just as quickly as that moment unfolded, fear gripped me tightly once more. What would happen if anyone found out? Suddenly aware of how far we had come, and how dangerous it all felt, I pulled back slightly from him but couldn't shake off that lingering connection we had built so carefully over time. Later that night at home while lying awake beside my husband who snored softly next to me, I couldn't help but replay every moment spent with Mateo over and over again in my mind, our laughter echoing through empty spaces, every touch lingering longer than necessary, every secret shared creating bonds stronger than any vow made years ago. Then came another twist when an unexpected notification popped up on my phone, a video link sent by Mateo labeled simply, "For you." My heart raced with anticipation mixed with dread as curiosity urged me forward despite knowing better than to indulge such temptations. I clicked on it hesitantly only for shockwaves of panic coursing through my veins when realizing its content, intimate moments captured during our sessions, the very essence of our connection laid bare before both eyes. Before I could process what this meant, my husband stirred beside me mumbling something incoherent before falling back asleep again obliviously unaware of everything unraveling around us. The weight of what lay ahead loomed larger than ever, choices awaited demanding clarity amidst chaos threatening everything familiar yet suffocating all at once. As dawn broke, the light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. I lay awake, feeling the warmth of my husband beside me but also the chill of my secret. My heart raced as I replayed the events of the night before. We shared secrets, laughter, and a sense of freedom that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a message from him. Nothing. The silence was deafening. My mind drifted back to our time together in the studio, where vulnerability had become our language. I had never felt so seen, or so afraid. The thrill of our connection was intoxicating, yet I knew it came with consequences that could shatter my world. After a restless hour, I finally decided to get out of bed and face reality. I made my way to the kitchen, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. My husband was already there, reading the morning paper with his usual intensity. "Good morning," he said without looking up. His voice was calm, but I sensed an undercurrent of tension. "Morning," I replied softly, pouring myself a cup as my stomach twisted in knots. Any plans for today? He asked casually, folding the paper with a crisp sound that felt like a verdict. I hesitated, weighing my options like stones in a scale. Should I tell him about my photography project? Or about last night? Just some errands to run, I finally said, avoiding his gaze. Make sure you don't take too long, he said with a hint of concern that struck me as odd given his usual preoccupation with work. The day dragged on as I busied myself with mundane tasks, grocery shopping at the local market and dropping off clothes at the dry cleaners on Main Street. Yet all I could think about was him, my stepson, and our shared moments behind the lens. Each thought sent ripples of guilt through me. It was becoming increasingly difficult to compartmentalize my feelings. Later that afternoon, while sitting in a cafe near the park where we often took photos together, I received an unexpected call from him. "Hey Claire," he said breathlessly. "Can we meet? There's something important I need to discuss." My heart raced at his urgency. "Sure," I replied cautiously. "Where?" "The studio." His tone left no room for argument. Arriving at the studio felt surreal. It was usually a space filled with creativity and laughter, but today it felt heavy with unspoken words. He paced back and forth as if wrestling with his thoughts before finally stopping in front of me. "I've been thinking about us," he started hesitantly. I held my breath, unsure how to respond as emotions swirled within me like leaves caught in a whirlwind. "I know this is complicated," he continued. "But last night, it felt real." It did, I admitted quietly, feeling both liberated and terrified by his honesty. His eyes searched mine for reassurance as he stepped closer, creating an electric tension between us that was almost palpable. "What do we do now?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again, a message from my husband asking when I'd be home for dinner. "I have to go," I said abruptly, pulling away from him as panic surged through me like ice water. "Claire," he called after me, but all I could think about was how fragile everything had become, the delicate balance between desire and duty threatening to topple over at any moment. Once home, dinner passed in tense silence punctuated only by clinking utensils against plates and occasional small talk that felt forced on both sides. My husband's eyes held questions that were never voiced aloud. They lingered just beneath the surface like uninvited guests at an intimate gathering. Later that evening, while cleaning up after dinner, his favorite dish still sitting uneaten, I caught sight of myself in the mirror above the sink, weary yet resolute, lost yet searching for clarity amidst this tangled web I'd woven around myself. Then came another buzz from my phone. A notification from social media showing photos from last night's session had been uploaded online by someone who attended our gallery preview earlier this week. My heart dropped into my stomach as dread washed over me like cold rain on a summer day. One photo stood out among them, a candid shot capturing our laughter together behind closed doors. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity until realization crashed down on me. This wasn't just art anymore, it was evidence that could unravel everything if discovered by anyone else. "Claire?" My husband's voice broke through my thoughts once more, this time laced with concern rather than indifference as he entered the kitchen behind me without warning, his gaze locked onto mine searchingly while glancing down at what lay before us. The weight of impending consequences loomed large over us both now, the truth lingering just beneath our skin waiting for its moment to surface. I felt my heart race as I faced him, the kitchen suddenly feeling too small for our unspoken tension. "What are you doing home so early?" I asked, forcing a casual tone that betrayed none of the turmoil inside me. "I wanted to surprise you," he replied, his brow furrowing slightly. "I thought we could talk." The sincerity in his voice made my stomach churn. I had been avoiding this conversation, but now it felt inevitable. He gestured toward the table cluttered with my photography equipment. "I noticed you've been spending a lot of time on this." There was an edge to his tone, a hint of curiosity mixed with something darker. "Is there something you're not telling me?" My mind raced as I considered my options. Should I come clean about my passion for photography? Or should I maintain the facade that everything was fine? It's just a hobby, I said, trying to sound dismissive. He leaned closer, and for a moment, I feared he might see through my carefully constructed walls. It seems like more than that, he pressed gently. You've been distant lately. The guilt washed over me like a cold wave. He had noticed the shift in our relationship, and it pained me to think of how much I had withdrawn from him while seeking solace in another's attention. Just then, the doorbell rang, interrupting the charged atmosphere between us. My heart sank. It was too soon for distractions. My husband stepped away to answer it, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I took a deep breath and glanced at the photos propped against the wall, images filled with raw emotion that told stories I hadn't yet shared with anyone. Would he understand if he saw them? Would he see what lay beneath the surface of my art? When he returned, he held an envelope in his hand. It's from your gallery, he said, confusion etched on his face as he handed it to me. My stomach twisted again. This was not what I needed right now. As I opened it slowly, hoping for good news but fearing the worst, a note slipped out along with an invitation to an upcoming exhibition featuring my work. You're featured? His voice was incredulous now, shifting from concern to genuine intrigue. Yes, I admitted softly, feeling a rush of pride mixed with apprehension about how much he really knew about what inspired those pieces. Why didn't you tell me? His eyes searched mine for answers as if they held all the secrets of my heart. I didn't think it mattered, I stammered awkwardly, realizing how trivial that excuse sounded in this moment. It matters to me, he replied firmly but gently. Maybe we can go together? The suggestion hung between us like a fragile thread connecting our worlds once more. But before I could respond, I overheard voices outside, the unmistakable sound of laughter and whispers drifting through the open window from our backyard where family friends had gathered for an impromptu barbecue. Claire, one of them called out cheerfully. Come join us. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to escape into that light-hearted atmosphere where no one knew about my struggles or secrets. But another part of me felt rooted here, caught between two lives that were beginning to collide in ways I never anticipated. I'll be right there, I called back weakly before turning back to face him again. Maybe later? He nodded slowly but looked unconvinced, as if sensing my internal conflict yet unable to grasp its full weight. After stepping outside and exchanging pleasantries with friends while keeping up appearances as best as possible, my mind kept drifting back to our conversation inside, how close we had come to addressing everything left unsaid between us. As laughter filled the air around me and plates clinked together under bright summer sunshine, unease settled in my chest like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. Then suddenly, amidst all the chatter and merriment around us came another voice, a familiar one that sent chills down my spine. Hey Claire. Have you seen those new photos your stepson took? My heart dropped at the mention of him. They had no idea about our connection beyond family ties or what those images truly represented. It was just innocent curiosity on their part, yet somehow felt like an accusation hanging heavy in the air. Yeah. They're amazing, someone exclaimed enthusiastically before continuing without pause about how talented he was becoming as a photographer. A knot twisted tighter in my stomach. Every word felt like shards of glass cutting deeper into my already frayed nerves. Claire? My husband's voice broke through again, as if sensing something wasn't right with me anymore, his gaze flickering between confusion and concern once more while everyone else remained blissfully unaware around us. I'm fine, I managed weakly, though it felt far from true. Uncertainty loomed large over both our futures now, an invisible barrier forming between us just when we seemed close enough to bridge it together once more. And then came another unexpected twist. Whispers grew louder among friends nearby about how they'd heard rumors regarding some scandal involving art and relationships, a vague mention that sent dread spiraling through me faster than anything else could have done at that moment. I felt the weight of the rumors pressing down on me. The chatter around us grew more pronounced, and I could sense the curiosity in their eyes. My heart raced as I glanced at my stepson, who seemed equally unsettled. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. He nodded, concern etched across his features. We stepped away from the crowd, seeking refuge in a quieter corner of the gallery. The vibrant colors of the art around us blurred together as my mind raced. "What if they find out?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "What if this all falls apart?" "Let's not think about that right now," he replied softly, trying to reassure me. "We can focus on the art and what it means to us." His words were meant to comfort, but they only intensified my inner turmoil. As we stood there, I felt a sudden urge to redefine our relationship. "Maybe we should take a step back," I suggested hesitantly. "This is getting complicated." He looked at me with those piercing eyes that had once drawn me in so easily. I could see the hurt flicker across his face before he masked it with understanding. "Claire," he said gently, "I don't want to lose what we have." His plea resonated deeply within me. It was true, our connection had grown profound through our shared passion for photography and art. But was it worth risking everything? The conversation shifted toward art and love, two subjects intertwined in ways I had never fully appreciated until now. We spoke about how art could capture emotions that words often failed to convey, each piece telling a story of its own. In that moment, I realized how much my feelings had evolved beyond mere attraction. It was about understanding and companionship. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the spell of our intimate exchange. It was a message from my husband. "Let's work on that family art project together this weekend." My heart sank at the thought of facing him while harboring such a heavy secret. "Maybe we should tell him," my stepson suggested cautiously after seeing my reaction. The idea sent shivers down my spine, revealing everything felt like stepping off a cliff without knowing what lay below. "No," I replied firmly but quietly, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me at the thought of such honesty. How could I explain this tangled web we'd woven? As we stood there in silence, contemplating our next move, an unexpected opportunity arose, an invitation to showcase our collaborative work at an upcoming community arts festival appeared on his phone screen. It felt like both a blessing and a curse, a chance for recognition but also a potential spotlight on our secrets. "We can't ignore this," he insisted with newfound determination as he scrolled through details about the event. "It might be just what we need." My mind raced again as I weighed the implications of participating in such an event together amidst growing tensions at home. Would it draw unwanted attention? Or could it serve as a way to channel our emotions into something beautiful? "I don't know," I murmured hesitantly, feeling torn between excitement and fear. "We'll make it work," he replied confidently, though uncertainty lingered between us like an uninvited guest. As we returned to join the others in the gallery space filled with laughter and lively discussions about art pieces on display around us, I couldn't shake off the feeling that time was running out before everything unraveled completely. The evening wore on without incident, however, unease settled deep within me like an anchor pulling me down into dark waters as whispers continued swirling around us, each one echoing louder than before. Finally, when it was time to leave, we exchanged glances filled with unspoken words, the weight of our choices hanging heavily between us as we stepped outside into the cool night air. "I'll think about it," I promised him quietly regarding his proposal for collaboration at the festival while internally grappling with whether honesty or deception would ultimately lead me toward freedom or further entrapment. But deep down inside lurked another unsettling truth. No matter which path I chose moving forward, the stakes were higher than ever before. The next few days blurred into a haze of anticipation and dread. I found myself standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing my confession to my husband. The weight of my secret pressed heavily on my chest, a constant reminder of the intricate web I had woven with my stepson. Each time I looked at myself, the reflection seemed foreign, a woman caught between two worlds. "Claire, are you ready for dinner?" My husband's voice cut through my thoughts. He stood in the doorway, his brow furrowed with concern. "I'll be right there," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine warmth. As we sat across from each other at the dining table, the clinking of utensils filled the silence. He spoke about work, the upcoming merger and late nights spent at the office, but all I could think about was how to break the news that had been gnawing at me for weeks. "Is everything okay?" he asked suddenly, his gaze piercing through my facade. "You seem distracted." "I'm just thinking about some things," I managed to say, avoiding his eyes. After dinner, I retreated to my studio, seeking solace in the familiar chaos of photographs and memories scattered across the walls. Each image echoed moments of intimacy shared with him, my stepson, captured in fleeting seconds that felt both exhilarating and dangerous. The thought of coming clean clawed at me, yet a part of me hesitated. What if this honesty shattered everything? Then came a knock on the door. It was him, my stepson, standing there with an intensity that made my heart race. "I can't stop thinking about our last shoot," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Neither can I," I admitted softly, feeling both exhilaration and fear swirl within me. His expression shifted as he stepped closer. "You need to tell him." "I know," I whispered back, but dread seeped into my bones as I thought about what lay ahead. In that moment of vulnerability, he confessed something unexpected: "I have feelings for you." The admission hung in the air like an uninvited guest, heavy and undeniable. "What do you mean?" My pulse quickened as panic set in. "I care about you deeply," he continued earnestly. "This isn't just about photography anymore." I stepped back instinctively, grappling with his words while trying to maintain my composure. "We can't, it's complicated. We need to be honest with ourselves," he insisted gently but firmly. "You deserve happiness." His words struck a chord within me, a reminder of everything I had been denying. Yet fear held me captive. Losing everything felt like an imminent reality if I chose to confront it all now. Suddenly, an envelope slipped from under the doorframe and landed at our feet. Curious and slightly apprehensive, I picked it up and saw it was addressed to me from the local art gallery. "What is it?" he asked as I tore it open with trembling fingers. An invitation for an exhibition featuring my work. My photography would finally be showcased publicly. Excitement mingled with anxiety as I read further. There would be a special section dedicated to personal stories behind each piece. "This is incredible," he exclaimed, genuinely thrilled for me, but then added cautiously, "Will your husband come?" "Of course," I said quickly before realizing how much more complicated this would make everything. As we stood there in a charged silence filled with unspoken emotions, reality crashed down around us like waves against rocky shores. The stakes were higher than ever before. Honesty loomed just out of reach while secrets threatened to unravel everything we'd built together, both as artist and muse, or something far more dangerous. The night grew darker outside as shadows danced across the room, a metaphor for our tangled lives now hanging by a thread. "We have to figure this out before the gallery opening," he urged softly yet firmly, again as if sensing my turmoil deep inside. "Yes," my voice trailed off uncertainly while contemplating how much longer we could keep living this lie without consequences creeping closer each day. With one last lingering look between us filled with unresolved tension hanging thickly in air like fog obscuring clarity ahead, I knew time was running out. Decisions awaited just beyond our grasp like specters waiting patiently for their moment to strike. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress for the gallery opening. The vibrant colors of the fabric felt like an extension of my emotions, bright yet chaotic. My heart raced as I thought about the photographs displayed on the walls, each capturing fragments of my hidden life. As I stepped into the gallery, the scent of fresh paint and polished wood enveloped me. The buzz of conversation filled the air, mingling with laughter and clinking glasses. My husband was already there, chatting amiably with some friends, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath my composed exterior. "Claire, you look stunning," he said, flashing a smile that felt both genuine and distant. I nodded, forcing a smile in return while my mind raced with anxiety about what lay ahead. Would he notice anything unusual in my photographs? People began to gather around my work, their eyes scanning each piece with curiosity. I caught snippets of their conversations, words like emotional and raw floated through the air. Each compliment made my heart swell and sink simultaneously. They were admiring art born from chaos and secrecy. Suddenly, someone pointed to a photograph that depicted an intimate moment between me and my stepson during one of our sessions. My breath hitched as I watched my husband approach that very piece. "What's this one about?" he asked innocently. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. Panic surged through me as I realized this could be the moment everything unraveled. "It's about connection," I finally managed to say, hoping it would suffice without raising suspicion. He nodded slowly while studying the image more closely, his brow furrowing slightly. Just then, a gallery assistant approached me with a concerned expression. "Claire, there's something you need to see." I followed her away from the crowd into a quieter corner where she revealed that there was an unexpected feature in tonight's program, a video showcasing behind-the-scenes moments from various artists' processes, including mine. My heart sank as dread washed over me. I could only imagine what footage might be included. Is it live?" I stammered. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "It's set to play shortly." With each passing moment, shadows loomed larger around me as whispers filled the gallery space like a rising tide threatening to drown me in its depths. Desperation clawed at my throat. How could I face everyone if they saw what we had shared? I returned to my husband just as he turned back toward our group with excitement shining in his eyes. "You're going to love this," he exclaimed, pulling me closer as we made our way back to the main area. The video started playing on a large screen at the front of the gallery. Images flickered across it, my stepson snapping photos and laughing with me during our sessions interspersed with snippets of creative exchanges we'd shared over time. Then came our kiss, the moment frozen in time that had ignited this entire spiral into chaos. Gasps echoed throughout the room like thunderclaps rolling across an open field as people processed what they were witnessing. My heart raced uncontrollably while dread settled deep within me like lead sinking into water. "Claire." My husband's voice cut through the noise, sharp and accusatory as he turned to face me with disbelief etched across his features. "I can explain," I stammered desperately, but new words would not suffice now. Everything had changed in an instant. The room buzzed with murmurs growing louder than before, curiosity turning into judgment right before my eyes as glances shifted between us like arrows piercing through flesh. "Explain what?" he shot back incredulously while stepping closer, anger simmering just beneath his calm facade. "This?" Before I could respond, someone from across the room shouted out questions, demanding answers while others pulled out their phones to capture every moment unfolding before them like a twisted spectacle meant for entertainment. My world crumbled around me as realization hit harder than any blow. There would be no escaping this truth now laid bare for all to see. The very essence of who I was had been exposed under harsh fluorescent lights illuminating every flaw and fracture within our lives. In that moment, standing amidst strangers who knew nothing yet felt entitled to judge everything about us, I understood how fragile connections could shatter when faced with reality's unyielding glare. And then it happened. Silence fell abruptly over us like a heavy curtain descending upon a stage after its final act, a void where once laughter thrived now filled only by uncertainty hanging thickly in air waiting for resolution or reckoning.